Should the U.S. be more concerned about the push for AI going on over in China and what that would mean for our place in the global market as the AI conversation barrels forward? Something that came on pretty strong and something that was brought up recently. It says here in this article, AI prodigy warns lawmakers on China's ambitions. AI is China's Apollo project. Very interesting article that we're going to get into by Alexandr Wang, who is the CEO of Scale AI. And we're going to start talking about some interesting things here. But it says a 26-year-old self-made billionaire whose company is helping the Pentagon adopt artificial intelligence technology warned this week the Chinese government is spending 3 times as much as the U.S. government's to become the world's undisputed AI leader. The country that is able to most rapidly and effectively integrate new technology into warfighting wins. If we don't win on AI, we risk ceding global influence, technology leadership, and democracy to strategic adversaries like China, Alexandr Wang told members of the House Armed Services Committee on Tuesday. The Chinese Communist Party deeply understands the potential for AI to disrupt warfare and is investing to heavily capitalize on the opportunity. Wang, raised by 2 parents who worked as nuclear physicists at Los Alamos National Laboratory, started his company in 2016 after dropping out of MIT when he was 19. And so now it's like a $7 billion company. China was making rapid progress developing AI technologies like facial recognition and computer vision and using these for domestic surveillance repression. He testified China is investing the full power of its industrial base for AI. This year, they're on track to spend roughly 3 times the U.S. government on AI, he added. The PLA is also heavily investing in AI-enabled autonomous drone swarms, adaptive radar systems, autonomous vehicles, and China has launched over 79 large language models since 2020. AI is China's Apollo project, he concluded. So I think it's interesting in this article. You just can't really ever escape the narrative. I'm not trying to insinuate anything, but this is something I was kind of been looking at, and there's an article here on LinkedIn that talks about how he built his company from the ground up. And he said about his company Scale AI that we're the picks and shovels in the generative AI gold rush. This is an article here on LinkedIn. Says Wang, who briefly became the world's youngest self-made billionaire after Scale was awarded a $7.3 billion valuation in 2021. His clients now include the U.S. Department of Defense and OpenAI. So it's just funny how, it's, kind of a new wrapper, but same candy. It's a new wrapper, but same sandwich, however you want to say. That essentially you have the CEO of a very large company telling the government that they need to spend more money in their defense contracts on AI data collection. Their company so happens to be the people providing those services, and one of his clients happened to be the U.S. Department of Defense. And so, it just that same story, that same narrative just goes on and on and on and on. I'm not trying to insinuate anything, but it's just funny how that stuff keeps being the same, no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter if they want to wear a man bun and, and act like they're all about peace and love and they're all about social justice. Yet it seems to be the same wrapper, just being, or same product being presented in a different wrapper, is what I meant. But what does this actually mean? What is he talking about? What are they saying? Because initially someone would look at this and say, well, what they're talking about is more invasion of my privacy. They want to collect more data here, but this is not actually what his organization is doing, at least to my knowledge right now, and it's not actually what they're actually talking about. Recently, we did a video talking about how OpenAI and multiple other tech companies like Google and Microsoft are being brought up in a petition and constant concern about human rights and working conditions for workers in Kenya for a company called Sama. And how they're causing these are the people that they're actually farming out massive clicking projects, trying to basically input and build this system from the ground up. And they're employing large, massive labor forces. And this article in LinkedIn that was written, I think back in 2022, might be even earlier, talks about how they are doing this. And so Let's take a look at this real quick and we will show you what we're talking about. So here it says, but that success was not built entirely on Silicon Valley. It also took a human army, some 240,000 people in Kenya, the Philippines, and Venezuela work for remote tasks. A subsidiary Scale doesn't mention in its marketing materials this vast outsourced workforce performs a rudimentary task crucial to AI labeling the data used to train it. And they say some 240,000 people. The truth is that they don't know how many people are being employed in this type of work. There's multiple companies that are doing it, mass armies of workers in these different nations that their economy is way lower. The cost, the value of their dollar is next to nothing, and this is where they're building these workhouses, and they're building it off the backs of these people. And building these, and we're all building towards this massive AI future that we supposedly are supposed to have. But he says, in his words, they're very important to the process of building powerful AI systems. Wang says of his remote tasks workers, we're always going to want a human in the loop. If you think that runs counter to the conventional wisdom around AI, which wants to free us humans of mundane workplace tasks, then you'd be right. And yet Scale was conceived as a one-stop shop for supplying human labor to perform tasks that algorithms could not do. Essentially the antithesis of AI. Many workers are paid less than $1 an hour and increasingly are becoming an ethical concern. In a 2022 study into working conditions, Remote Tasks, this is this company here, this is Remote Tasks is a subsidiary of Scale, so this is Alexandr Wang, met the minimum standards of fair work. The minimum standards of fair work in just 2 of 10 criteria. Beyond the ethical considerations, there are business questions too, namely that what Scale is doing with remote tasks isn't hard to replicate, but Scale stakeholders remain confident Wang can keep the company ahead of its rivals. So they're saying it meets the minimum standards of work, of fair work. It only meets 2 of those minimum standards. And what are those minimum standards? So here is fairwork.gov, and this is the National Fair Work Standards, 11 minimum NES entitlements. And they are maximum weekly hours, requests for flexible working arrangements, offer and requests to convert from casual to permanent employment, parental leave and related entitlements like PTO, time off, overtime, things like that, annual leave, personal carriers leave, compassionate leave, and family and domestic violence leave, community service leave, long service leave, public holidays, notice of termination and redundancy pay, fair work information statement, and casual employment information statement. So essentially a lot of stuff, a lot of things that you get awarded at your work, like PTO, the ability to, essentially not be worked into the ground, all these types of things. To a degree, I understand there's a lot of people that feel like they're being worked into the ground. A lot of these protections that you have, a lot of these other nations don't have and they don't offer. And so out of their own free will, they offer 2 of those minimum standards. So it just goes to show you that, be thankful that we are in an area of the world where we have those protections, and they're there so that we don't have to be treated that way in our workforce. But these people over here, they're building workplace factories because these protections don't exist, and it saves the company money. So all of a sudden, people who seem very communistic in their leanings and have one political view and they propagate it very much. I'm not saying I don't know this man, Alexandr Wang. I don't know where he leans, but there are other tech companies utilizing his services. OpenAI is just one of them. And in that other article, we saw Sama being used by multiple tech companies whose leadership has been very vocal about, social justice and human rights and protecting those that need protecting, and also being a beacon for that kind of a thing. Yet they're utilizing services here where human rights doesn't seem to be something of any concern. All of a sudden, these very communistic people who are very vocal against the evils of capitalism become very unhealthily capitalistic in their leanings with their business, in their businesses practices. All of a sudden, that becomes a thing for them. So it's something to take into consideration. And so going back to the original thing, this is what he's talking about when he says the government and everyone needs to become more serious about collecting this data. These farming houses, what they're doing is they set these people up to do clickbait tasks. They're looking at photos, like they'll take a look at a photo of a dress, on a mannequin, and then they'll take a look of a photo of a dress on a doll, and they'll label those photos for the AI. They'll say these photos are of real dresses. This is real dresses that go on humans, and these photos are fake dresses that go on dolls. And then they'll take a photo. Then they'll take another look at someone in a princess dress and someone in a dress that's going out to a ball or a gala. And they'll say this is a real dress that humans wear, and this is a costume. And what they're doing is they're inputting all this data and feeding it into the AI system so that the AI can learn. And it's these mass houses of mass workers. It's very similar to the industrial phase or the industrial revolution, where they had these mass factories and people were working long hours with no benefits, and there was child labor laws and all these things that happened in our history. What we did was we added protections for the people in our country, but then that ultimately had organizations just go overseas to where those protections don't exist, and now they're just using the people overseas and those factory conditions to do this. Now, granted, it sounds very dramatic, and you could easily say, well, these people are sitting in front of a computer clicking away all day. But anybody who has ever worked in a company before would know that then all that really means is that the expectations are much higher, and the push is much higher, and the pay is much lower. So I mean, they're still being mistreated. It's still a potential, or at least a concern, of being mistreated. I keep hearing different things. There's people that say they're making up to $10 an hour, but a lot of people have said that when they actually interview individuals who work in those conditions, they say that the work is not steady, and sometimes they'll get $10 an hour, sometimes they'll get $25 an hour. Sometimes the work will last for a week, sometimes the work will last for 20 minutes, and then the more workers that are there, the more things that are going on, it goes way down to $1 an hour, sometimes less than $1 an hour, because it fluctuates depending on the needs of the project that they're trying to build. It's all very secretive. A lot of the workers didn't even know they were building or working for companies like OpenAI and Scale. They didn't understand this concept. They just know that they're being sent weird tasks. I read one article where they said the guy was instructed to put a motorcycle helmet on his head and take photos of himself, and then send those photos off to some software somewhere, not even understanding what's going on. And it's all with the intention of building the data pool for this AI software. And this is what this individual is talking about, is this is how they do it. They build those, they create those factories in these various different countries, or those working conditions, and they continue to build their AI database. All that being said, there's been a lot of talk about the direction we're going in and how we're forced to go in this direction. I recently watched a video where the individual was talking about how even if they didn't want to build the AI, even if they didn't want to do all these things that they're concerned with, they are forced to go in that direction because other nations, like you said, are spending 3 times, 4 times, 5 times as much as the US on their AI, and their ambitions and their goals are much different than ours. Later on in this article, he talks about, Alexandr Wang passes a comment and says that China will use its AI to control its people. That's what they're going to do. And with that comes more and more concerns for our future, as far as how powerful this AI is and what's going on. But this is something that we definitely want to take a look at, and it's something that I just wanted to bring forward and show people, like, this is what's going on, and this is how these things are built. It's all built off the backs of human construction, essentially. The human, they're building those databases as we speak. That's all they've been doing. That's all they do all day long. This is what they're talking about. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this is an issue? Do you think that there needs to be more light shed upon this? Do you think that there needs to be some conversation around how we're doing this and what this looks like for us, and what this looks like in the future? Do you think this is that something should be a concern? China and what they're doing, their ambitions with AI versus our ambitions with AI, how we're going about doing this. Are all these things something that needs to be not taken lightly and discussed even more? Obviously, you have individuals such as this organization meeting the 2 minimum standards of fair work, and that, it doesn't seem like anyone's really even discussing it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you guys for sticking around this long. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and I will catch you guys in the next one.